Good evening from Lagos, Nigeria, here, and from wherever you're joining us. You're welcome to Lagos Tableau User Group meeting for June 2025. And today we are really excited to have two amazing guests with us. I would like to say we have some of the best guys in the community and also in the industry itself. And we'll be having something slightly different today from our usual sessions. Today we'll be having an Ask Me Anything session with Ryan Soares and Bo. And the next slide. And if you're just here and you're joining us for the first time, you should absolutely join us, be a part of the Tableau Data Farm in Lagos and Nigeria. We are dedicated to building a supporting and inclusive community for Tableau enthusiasts in Lagos and Nigeria at large. Our mission is to connect Tableau users of all skill levels, either you're a beginner or you're an expert. And we try to foster an environment where members can share knowledge, network, and grow their visualization skills. We we at Lagos TUG, we are committed to promoting data-driven decision making and showcasing the talent and innovation within the local Tableau community. Next slide. And so meet the Lagos TUG leaders. We have Omoke and Ayodeji, data analyst at Ox Intelligence, and myself, senior data analyst at Salam FinTech. We have Maureen Okonko, who is a consultant at Swift Insight, and Idris Sakilapa, who is an analyst at Flutterwave. And quickly about some of our leaders. Kenny is a data analyst at Ox Intelligence, focused on helping individuals enhance their Tableau skills and navigate their visualization journey. She is a passionate Tableau lover with a recognition as a one-time Tableau social ambassador. And recently at the concluded Iron Viz Tableau Conference event, she co-won the Michael Christiani Community Leadership Reasons Award. And I mean, this is a testament to how much she tries to, give back to the community. And has also been mentioned several times on the Weekly Data Farm blog. In her free time, she enjoys watching movies and finds relaxation through sightseeing. So you can follow Kenny on X. And myself, I'm a senior data analyst at Salam FinTech. I've been using Tableau for about 4 years for both work and fun. Also lucky enough to be a Tableau visionary and a two-time Tableau Public Ambassador and two-time winner of the Vizes. Outside of Tableau, I love Manchester City, love going to the gym and Pinteresting. And then you can follow me on X. Um, then meet Maureen Okonko. She's a Tableau consultant at Swift. She's a one-time Tableau ambassador for 2024. Winner of the Notable Newbie Award as well, and also was opportunity to speak at the Tableau Data Farm Europe London 2024 with four views of the day in Tableau Public. She finds fun exploring new culinary adventures and traveling. And then you can follow Maureen on X. And then finally, but not the least, definitely, we have Idris Akilapa, works at risk and compliance reporting professional at Flutterwave and specializes in Tableau, Power BI, and Alteryx development. Is a three-time Tableau Public Ambassador with over 4 years of experience. He excels in using Python, Excel, SQL, Alteryx, and Tableau to extract, analyze, and visualize complex data sets. He loves playing video games and binge watching Netflix in his free time. So we have some meeting ground rules, majorly three. First is to interact. Feel free to say hello and interact with the rest of the audience in the chat section. We have two amazing guys as well from our community that would be chatting with you, interacting with you. Feel free to introduce yourself and where you're joining us from in the chat section. Be sure to ask your questions. I mean, that's the major end goal from today. Feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A session, and then the selected questions will be answered live at the end of the speaker session. And in this case, we just get to read them out while asking questions as well. I think the most important part and the most important thing is to learn and have fun. The meetings are recorded and can be found on the Lagos Studio YouTube channel, so you can take as much time to stay connected and connect and have have fun. You don't have to worry about the meetings are recorded or not because they would be, and we would also send the links to the meetings to you through mail. And now to today, we have two amazing speakers and guests. We have Bo McCready, data scientist at Apple, and Raya Soares, visual analytics lead at Deloitte. And quickly about Bo, Bo is an Iron Viz Champion for 2025, one of the finalists alongside Ryan and Catherine. We definitely are working on also having Catherine here, so it's an honor to have both of them. And Bo is a dedicated Tableau Public Ambassador and a data scientist based out of Texas, Austin, in Texas. Outside of data, he enjoys screen printing, watching soccer matches. I don't know what club. Do you have a favorite club, Bo? Do you support any?
Yeah, in the Premier League, I support West Ham, and then we have
Oh,
Major League Soccer here in the U.S. I live about 5
mhm.
minutes away from the Austin FC Stadium, so we have season tickets, and I go to all their matches too.
Oh, cool. Really nice. You're a huge fan. West Ham.
Definitely,
That's
yeah.
cool. Yeah. And attending concert. So you can follow Bo on X at Bo Knows Data. And then we also lucky enough to have Ryan Soares with us. Ryan Soares is a visual analytics lead at Deloitte. He's a Tableau Public Ambassador, also a 2025 Iron Viz finalist, and a co-leader of the Sports TAG. I'm sure you must have seen like some of the amazing submissions and some of the visualizations that they share from data relates to sports. In case you're hearing this for the first time, be sure to check that out as well. It's an amazing community initiative and you should be part of it. He has 9 Viz of the Day nomination. So like visualizations nominated for that, and 3 times Iron Viz top 10. And I mean, this is a testament to him also being here. He works in visual analytics at Deloitte, specializing in the end-to-end design and implementation of reporting solutions. He's based out of Toronto, Canada. In his free time, he loves playing and following sports like basketball, golf, tennis, and cycling. So I'm just going to ask you, Ryan, who do you think is the GOAT of tennis? Is it Roger Federer? Is it Rafa Nadal? Is it Novak?
That's a good question. For me personally, I think it's Federer, just because he was like the first to kind of arrive. But I think it's probably Djokovic at this point, since he's still going and could probably still win more.
Yeah, I pretty much have to agree with you. So you can follow Ryan on X at Ryan Soares. And yeah, so today we are going to be having an Ask Me Anything session with Bo, and next slide with Ryan. So you can, if you don't mind, you can stop sharing. Kenny, thank you. And myself and Maureen are just going to basically lead this session. I'm going to let Maureen introduce herself and like yeah, she can just kick things off.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, GB. It's good to have both finalists here, Ryan and Paul. So my name is Maureen. I think GB has done the proper introduction that needs to be done. I'm a Tableau analyst, business intelligence analyst. I work at Swift. I've been using Tableau for like two years now, and it's been such an amazing journey. So in this session, we'll just be asking questions. Well, I'll pass the mic down to GB to start.
Right. So I think like everything, right, there's always an opening and origin story. And first of all, again, welcome, Bo and Ryan. And to kick things off, can you share, what initially drew you to data visualization and Tableau specifically? What would you say was a moment or a project that made you realize this was a path you wanted to pursue seriously? So maybe Bo, you can go first and Ryan can go after.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I would say I've been interested in data viz work, pretty much my whole career at this point. So I would say it all started for me in 2012. I guess I went and got kind of my first analyst job, and it was my first time, actually doing data work hands-on full-time, after being in school. And my boss at the time was really into kind of the art of data visualization. Although he didn't really do it himself, but he was really curious about it. And in my first week on the job, he actually sent me down to Chicago to do an in-person training with Edward Tufte, who is kind of one of the biggest names in the data viz field over the last 30 or 40 years, and he's written kind of a lot of the pioneering books that really got people interested in a lot of this in the in the 80s and 90s. And I think for me, my first full-time adult job, within a week I was doing a workshop with Edward Tufte. It was kind of like it's hard not to get hooked at that point. And so yeah, you just kind of devoured his books, and then all the other books I could find. And then a couple months later, my boss at the time also had a friend in the Milwaukee Police Department in Wisconsin, and they had been using this software to to plan their activity called Tableau. And he said, hey, why don't you buy a license and see if you can figure out something for us to do with this. And so yeah, I got a license, and 12 and a half years later, here we are. So yeah, I think for me, I'm somebody who kind of, I guess I would say I almost kind of came into the data world reluctantly, and that I didn't think of myself as a math person. I didn't really take a lot of math stuff in school. But then when I ended up taking a couple of required statistics courses on the way to my degree, I was like, okay, now it makes sense for me, and I'm hooked. And I think that the data viz work always appealed to me as well, because my dad, for his career, was a painter. And so I grew up I guess surrounded by art, and going to museums and art shows and things like that. And I'm not really much good at painting or drawing myself, but kind of turned out I was pretty good at data work. And so being able to interact that with the artistic side of things was super appealing to me.
Amazing, thank you. That was very well packed. Ryan, if you want to go next.
Yeah, for me, it started as kind of a way to get a role related to what I kind of studied in school. So I did business and computer science, which is a mix of like technical and also business as well. So I never wanted to go full like computer science or full business. I kind of wanted something in between. So when I was looking for internships, my brother, who kind of preceded me in the Tableau community, he was kind of doing the Tableau Public stuff before I did. He suggested me to learn Tableau, because it would be a way for me to kind of find those roles. So I did that. I started doing Makeover Monday to kind of learn and upskill in Tableau. And then I was able to find roles in analytics. And then from there, I kind of just got involved in the community, doing a lot of the community initiatives, started creating on Tableau Public. And that's when I kind of got introduced into the community, which I really enjoyed sharing, seeing what other people did. And you mentioned in my intro, one of my big interests is sports, and that's very data driven and stats focused. So I like that as well. So I could do it for professional reasons, but also personal as well. And that sharing aspect and learning within the community was something that kept me involved.
Thank you. Mari?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I love the intro. And you made mention of community like 2, 3, 4 times. I think that question will also go for you as well, Bo. How has being part of Tableau, community how has being part of the broader Tableau community influenced your growth and passion for data visualization? Maybe you can go first. Or
Yeah.
Bo.
Sure. Yeah, I'll go first. I think for me, it's like the community is a huge source of inspiration. Like there's so many people creating, always, trying to strive to do better, but also I think the challenge as well, right? You see a lot of great work out there. You want to produce, you want to learn and develop your skills further. So for me, it's that inspiration aspect, learning as well is a big part too, because a lot of people in the community, write blogs, put content out there to, teach different aspects, new features of Tableau. So those two aspects, I think the inspiration and the learning has really allowed me to develop. And yeah, I definitely wouldn't have been an Iron Viz finalist without all of the community support. So yeah, that would be my take on it.
Yeah, I would second all of that, and I think what I'd add as well is just the, I don't know, I mean you all know it too, but like it's a special community of people. Like for some reason, like Tableau seems to draw in a type of person, particularly the people who kind of do this publicly and visibly and want to work together. It draws in a type of person that just tends to be really kind and supportive and helpful. And so yeah, I think in addition to the the inspiration and all of that wonderful stuff that comes along with it, the friendships along the way have just been incredible too. I think that something that a lot of people are surprised by, when they first get involved with the community, is that there are people, and this happened for me too, when I didn't really start getting involved with the community until 2019 or so, and then you see the people who are the biggest names, the most famous developers, the Iron Viz winners, all of them, all these people where you're in awe, and you're like, I wonder if I could ever do anything like that. And then you go talk to them, and they're just the nicest people, the most humble people, and then you become friends and you become part of it. And I think not just for me, but for so many others, I've kind of seen people take this journey of being like, wow, these are the best Tableau developers in the world. They're not going to want to talk to me, but they do. Everybody's so great and supportive, and then yeah, people become friends, and I can say now that I travel across the US, and in most of the major cities, I have friends that I can hang out with from Tableau, which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Maureen. Yeah, sorry, I cut you short. Good to go.
No, that's fine. You can go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. That makes lots of sense. And I think us as well, from this side of the world, Lagos to UG, we're a testament to the community. From Maureen to myself to Kenny to Idris. It's the love from the community that has pushed a lot of us to this point as well. And because we are still talking about the opening and the origin story, and because we're also here to talk about the Iron Viz competition itself. Regarding Iron Viz 2025, can you just walk us through the very first pack for your respective vizes? Because I'm sure everyone, I'm not as conversant with the process as you guys are, but I guess you got data sets and you had to imagine what you're going to do with it. So if you could walk us through the very first pack for your respective vizes, what was the theme and how that influenced the initial idea or the data points that caught your eye for what you later decided to work on? Yeah, Bo, you can go first.
Okay. Yeah, so I think for me, so for context, if y'all didn't watch the competition, so the data set we used was from the Federal Aviation Administration in the USA. It was a data set that recorded since roughly 1990 every time a plane collided with wildlife. So it's not a complete record, but lots of records of when that happened. And so to be totally honest, when we got the data sets, I looked at it and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know how to tell a story with this that's gonna fit the moment, because at the time in the US there had been some really kind of high profile aviation safety incidents that were really fresh on people's minds. And then I thought, gosh, we're going to be at this conference in San Diego. We're going to be doing this competition in front of 7,000 people a day before they're all about to get on planes and fly home. And so there's definitely quite a few moments for me of thinking how do I find a positive story in here? Ultimately in this data set about bad things that are happening in planes, with making a room full of people feel okay about the fact that they're about to take that journey themselves, within a day. And so I think I think really whenever I kind of tackle a new data set like this that I don't know too well, I'd seen this one before, but I wasn't, super familiar with it. I tend to just start hunting for outliers and then starting to see, is there a pattern within these outliers? Is there something here that's going to resonate and tell kind of a broader story? And so, for me, there's a variable in that data set that was the cost of the incident. And so I just looked to see, okay, what are the highest cost incidents of a plane hitting wildlife? And there's a huge outlier in that data set from 2009. An incident where a plane in New York collided with a flock of Canadian geese. There's about $50 million worth of damage. And then I realized as I looked at it that this was the kind of famous Miracle on the Hudson, incident, which, ended up getting a huge amount of media attention. They eventually made a Tom Hanks movie about it. And so, for me, that was kind of my first spark and moment of like, okay, the biggest outlier in this data set, I actually do know this story. And I think most of the people in the room are going to know this story too. And then so how do I take this outlier and use it to kind of anchor the rest of the story around that? So I would say, once I found that point, there were probably a couple days of exploring different pathways. But, once I saw that, I kind of always had in my mind, like, I'm going to tell a pre and post story about what things looked like before this event happened and what things looked like afterwards. So yeah, I think that's kind of a transferable lesson to, lots of data sets too. Like, go find the most extreme examples and then see, are they real? Are they accurate? And if so, is there anything we can use there to kind of anchor the story? So that's how the build started for me.
Amazing. That's so cool. Brian, for you?
Yeah, for me, the kind of my thought process started from the overall story I would tell. So I came into it, and this is for all of my submissions. I always want to have like a very unique story, be it like something personal or something that's like, even if the data shows it one way, like you can think about things from a different angle, different perspective to come up with something unique. So that was kind of my approach going into it. And I did a lot of research first, just seeing what's out there. So I looked at the data as Bo did, I analyzed all the different variables, did some research on Tableau Public, what's out there. And I realized that this is a very popular data set in the community. It was my first time using it, but there's a ton of different dashboards out there. And it's a well-researched topic too, just with a lot of papers that are out there on wildlife strikes. In the research I did, there was one angle that I saw, which was, about aviation safety, which is, very a natural angle to take since we all take planes and travel. So then I thought, like, let's totally flip it and go from a different angle. Like, what if you were on the other side of the wildlife strike? What if you were the wildlife? How would you use this data to increase your chances at arriving to whatever destination you're going safely? So that's how that kind of idea started for me. And then it eventually ended up becoming this like bird flight simulator, migration simulator kind of idea. But it all kind of started from having like a different angle, different take on the data, which I wanted to do from the very start.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Ryan. You and Bo had different perspective. Bo had the outliers, the patterns, the data storytelling, while you had the personal, unique, and safety measures and all, which is pretty much like a brilliant contrast. So we'll go dive into the creative process and data storytelling. So we're going to talk about the creative process a bit. How did you typically move from a raw data set to a compelling visual story? Was there any preferred method of brainstorming or sketching out your ideas that you did before you jumped into Tableau? You can go first, Ryan.
Yeah, so a lot of my kind of ideation I did in the first maybe 2 to 3 weeks of so in total I think we had like 7 weeks, right, Bo? Like six or 7 weeks.
Like that, 6 or 7, yeah.
Something like that. So yeah, in the first few weeks I did most of my work just kind of in there's a tool called Miro that's basically like a design tool for storyboarding. So I had a lot of ideas in there, kind of just trying to structure how this kind of this migration simulator story could flow. So I wasn't doing a lot of work in Tableau. I was, exploring the data, trying to, POC different visuals that might work. But I kind of put together the structure where I wanted the kind of user experience, user journey to flow. So the different decisions that they would make along the way, such as, choosing a species, choosing a origin, destination, and so on. And once I kind of had that structure in place, then I kind of brought it into Tableau and thought about, what different Tableau components could enable the user experience that I wanted to have. So that's where I was thinking about things, like parameters, parameter actions, dynamic zone visibility, all the different features that could be utilized to bring it to life in Tableau. So that's kind of how the flow of my process has started, kind of with that ideation and structuring outside of Tableau, and then only bringing it in when I had a clear kind of vision of what I wanted the dashboard to look like. And of course, like I'm sure Bo can echo this, there's a lot of iteration between those two steps. Like you can find out something's not feasible in Tableau, then you have to go back and change your story structure or your design. So it definitely wasn't linear. There's a lot of back and forth between those two.
Great. Bo, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I think for me, I think kind of a few similarities with Ryan's process, but definitely some things that I think I did a bit differently as well. So I think for me, honestly, almost from the beginning, I feel like I had two parallel mental tracks going of like the aesthetics and the data. And so I like to use, Figma to support kind of my brainstorming and design work. I think like a lot of us do. And so I would say, I really feel like, in parallel, I was working on kind of layout and graphic elements and color schemes over in Figma, but almost in a way that was a little bit disconnected from the data. And then simultaneously in Tableau, I would say that I just presented about this the other day as well. And, I guess I kind of used the catchphrase like drag, drop, and detect in that, I would say that I was spending just a lot of time actually within Tableau, just trying to make different graphs and different iterations on things to see like what's interesting, what's fun to look at. Can I animate this? Can I, do an unconventional chart type with this? And so I think for me, it was actually a process where I probably built, my final build probably only has like 4 or 5 graphs in it, depending on how you look at it. But I would say I probably built, 50 to 60 different graphs within Tableau kind of along the way, just to see like, is this interesting? Is there compelling? Is it compelling? Is there, is there a pattern here? Is there something that I want to put on screen? And so, for me, I would say I did kind of a lot of, expanding and contracting kind of during the development process. But definitely built a ton of different graphs, and then kind of tried to figure out, okay, because I feel like for me, I formed my story through that exploration, and honestly just picking out the things that were interesting to me, and then thinking, how do I tie these together into something simpler. But I'm sure that it was the case for all three of us, for Ryan and for Catherine as well. I think we all probably had, an initial build that looked substantially different from what ended up on screen, but took way too much time. I mean, I had a story that was actually fairly different from what I ended up presenting, but then the first time I tried to build it from scratch, it took about an hour. And I realized like there are some efficiencies I can find here, but I'm gonna have to like totally re-engineer this story to get under 20 minutes. So I think I started with a really big story that had way too many different points in it, and then just kind of gradually whittled it down over time.
Yeah,
that's the same thing for me. If I built a version that took me over an hour to remake. So I want to ask something to Bo. Like, what was your because I know what my kind of reaction was, but like, how did you feel when it was over an hour the first time you tried?
Oh my gosh, I just thought like I'm done. Like I can't do this. Like I'm gonna have to like blow the whole thing up and start over. Yeah, it was. I could tell it wasn't like I figured it wouldn't be 20 minutes because I heard from everyone like, no, you're not going to be under 20 the first time. But yeah, when it was an hour, I was like, what have I done? But yeah, it's similar for you.
I was probably like 75% through my build when it was over an hour. I was like, I'm just gonna stop and then we can do this faster.
Yeah, that's so cool. Also shout out to Catherine, Catherine McCready. She was also part of the top three that presented at the stage. She had like a really amazing build, and everyone should actually go check it. In the chat with the links to all this visualization, so you could check them out. So just moving on. So for Bo, your winning Viz undoubtedly had a powerful narrative. And what's in your opinion, were the key ingredients or are the so let me just make it much more general. So what in your opinion are the key ingredients for transforming, we talked about it, either it's a data you're not familiar with or one that you're familiar with. But the key ingredients for transforming complex data into a story are not just only informs, but can also deeply resonate with the audience.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting and complicated question, and I think we saw three very different but all very strong approaches to that on the stage. For me, I think what I was going for is ultimately, knowing that we had limited time, and honestly too, when you're thinking about an audience like that, there's that many thousands of people, and some of them are really, really engaged and going to be hanging on every word, but some of them are going to be texting or doing something else or thinking about dinner or whatever. And so I think for me, as I was thinking about writing the story out, I really wanted, kind of just one or two, ideally one key message for people to walk away with. And so I think for me, getting it down to that really simple story of, hey, after the miracle on the Hudson, a lot of safety practices changed, and that's borne out in the data. We see really good results. And I think, I kind of had in my head for a while, like, I just want people to walk away kind of understanding that. And so, so I would say, what I ended up with what I said out loud, with the graphs that ended up on the screen, they're all just kind of trying to contribute to that one core message to help people develop in different ways, in different perspectives, that basic understanding of like, yep, there's a lot more recorded strikes than there used to be, but they don't tend to cause a lot of damage, and in general things seem to be going pretty well. So I think for me it was partly kind of having that clear and simple message. Also because it was really important to me for the storytelling piece at the end to kind of include explicit call outs to the community and kind of the legacy of the developers that came before us, particularly Kelly Martin's kind of famous work with this data set. For me, that was, as we were kind of getting the story itself too down from 6 or 7 minutes to 3 minutes, that was kind of a non-negotiable part of it for me. I thought, this is here. I want people to one, kind of walk away with the one clear message from the data, but two, also walk away with kind of a clear personal connection and an understanding that we're all standing on the shoulders of the people who came before us, and also helping blaze the trail for the people who come after. So those were the big points I wanted to make, and I think I tried to keep the graphs simple and linear to help support that.
Thank you for explaining that explicitly for us, Bo. I have a question for Ryan. When I watched your Iron Viz, I watched the pre-recorded version actually. I was actually stunned by how this personally affected what you talked about birds and all that. Was like brilliant perspective. But I want to ask, can you share a specific challenge you faced in crafting your story? And how did you overcome it to ensure we had clarity and also your dashboard had impact?
Yeah, so I think a challenge for me was So the nature of my dashboard that I built, it's more of a tool and like a simulation. So like, how do I communicate that to an audience in a 3-minute presentation? Like that was kind of what I was thinking about, and also keeping it, engaging as well. So the challenge there was picking an example to walk through on stage to that perfectly illustrates what I'm trying to show in the data, which was how do you essentially find the windows, or sort of finding insight where there's no data, because that's what I kind of had in the strike report page, where I was kind of going through the path through that little heat map. The insight there was trying to find those kind of windows where there actually is no data. So that kind of idea coming through in the presentation was something I had to think about, sort of find an example, like a species origin destination example that had some context, as well as kind of illustrating the insights in the graphs and the visuals that I wanted to highlight, while being within 3 minutes. So that was something that I did think about and plan specifically for the presentation. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Absolutely. And then this question is for both of you guys, and then after this one we could take some of the questions we have in the Q&A. So how much iteration goes into your work? Do you find yourselves constantly tweaking and refining designs? And at what point do you feel, or like you get that feeling that, okay, I can say it's finished at this point, right? I don't have to make any more changes. So Ryan, you could go first.
Yeah, well, I think there's a difference in how we would do it in Iron Viz compared to how we would do it usually, right? Like with Iron Viz, you have these limitations of 3-minute presentation, 20-minute build limit. So when it comes to iteration, like at least for me, I was probably very late in the build process when I needed to make things simpler and more efficient to actually get under the time limit. So like when you're doing that in your typical process, it might be a bit more structured, since you don't have to rebuild your dashboard. You don't really have to think about that. So I had the 2 key points of iteration for me were between the story and the design. So when I would think about the story, I would be thinking about the design as well, and as that evolved, I would change the design. And then between design and development, as I tested different things in Tableau, some things were feasible, some things worked, some things didn't. So going back and iterating on the design. And the last part was the development. So, using different Tableau components, taking things out, changing how things were built, the order in which I built things, just to get under that 20-minute time limit. I think that's very unique to Iron Viz, which is why this competition is really crazy, but also really cool to be a part of. Yeah, I'm not sure about you if you feel the same way. Like it's a totally different than what your regular process would be.
No, definitely. Yeah, I think yeah, you're right. I mean, the iteration starts to involve not just how can I make this look slightly better, but how can I do this sometimes even 5 seconds faster, because by the end there, you're really looking for just the tiniest performance improvements, or yeah, really just the littlest things that are going to make the build a little bit smoother and easier. So I think thinking about the part of the question where you asked how do you decide when you're done, for me, I was done the day it was due, because we had to turn it in. I think even now, yeah, it was a winning build, but even now I look back at it and there's things that make me wince, and I think I would have done that differently, or that's not quite right, or if I had 1 more minute, this would have worked differently. So I think if for a regular Tableau Public project, or even something at work, yeah, I'm gonna obsess about every detail of it, and I don't have a time constraint. Like if there's something I don't like, I can just go fix it. And like even now, I open what was the winning build, and like I look at the tooltips, and I'm like, gosh, these tooltips are awful. Like but at some point, you only have so much time, and you have to sacrifice something. And so I couldn't do everything I wanted to do, and also have beautiful tooltips. And I think, yeah, that's part of Iron Viz is letting go of what are some things you would rather do, or letting go of what are often some really good ideas. Some of the graphs that got cut from my final build, I love them, and I'm so proud of them. And I don't know if anyone will ever see them, and I'm sure it's the case for you too, Ryan. But like yeah, it is weird, particularly compared to like the Iron Viz qualifier, where it can be whatever you want it to be, and you can obsess and build and expand as much as you want to. But yeah, for this, it's a hard part of the iteration process to take something that you're really proud of and you think will really resonate with people, but you just don't have time to build it. So it's got to go. Yeah.
I was done the moment I could make it 2 to 3 times under 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That was that I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. That's really interesting. That's a whole lot of work that goes into all of these things. And Bo talked about performance and ability to choose the right Tableau features you want to keep or remove or add this. Because I think Ryan, you used parameter actions in yours, if I'm correct. So I'll ask just for you and Bo, actually, were there any advanced Tableau features calculations that you did that you found particularly impactful while implementing your dashboard?
Yeah, I'll go first on that one. I didn't do anything too, at least personally, I don't think I did anything too complex with my dashboard. Like I used a lot of the basic Tableau features, and it was heavily driven by parameter actions, dynamic zone visibility, and then map layers. So all of the actual map visuals I had were all made with map layers. And then probably the most complex thing I did, I had 2 charts where I used map layers to create those custom charts. So like the heat map with the kind of bubble chart as well. That one was map layers, which personally I had to learn just to. It was kind of a challenge that I had. I wanted to do something kind of that I hadn't done before in Tableau. So for me, that was using map layers to build custom charts, which was the most technically complex thing. But I didn't want to, just throw in some complexity just to have some technical flair in my viz. I wanted to be, purposeful with intent. So for me, that was combining the heat map with the bubble chart to have those both in one sheet, since it, was better aesthetically to communicate the kind of flow through the strike hotspots. So yeah, I know Bo had a bit more complexity, so I'll let you speak to that.
I do want to call out though, Ryan, for your build, you had some really, really clever tricks too for how you use the images and your backgrounds. Like that was some really advanced stuff that was awesome as well. I think for me, there are a couple things I did that were a little more complex. I guess I would say a lot of it was kind of just out of the box Tableau as well, but I did leverage custom themes. Definitely shaved kind of a minute or 2 off the build to kind of, predefine the color scheme and a lot of the default formatting options. I think, a similar story for map layers. I didn't really start learning to use map layers effectively until I found out I had made the Iron Viz finals, and then I thought, okay, I got to practice and integrate these into the build, because it seems like something that you just do now. So I did use map layers on a couple parts of the build, particularly the kind of radial chart that they ended up calling an eyelash chart during the competition. But definitely used map layers and also some data identification within Tableau Prep to allow those not just to be built the way that I wanted, but to animate the way that I wanted. It's only like 2 seconds of the Viz presentation, but like that little animation when they rotate the way they do, like around the central point, is probably the single piece that I'm the most proud of. and I wish I could have played it like 5 or 6 times just to be like, hey, this is kind of cool. But yeah, I would say those are the big things I did. Yeah, the custom themes, the map layers, and then I did leverage animation as well. I know that it's not necessarily a new thing, but for me it actually was. I don't tend to use animation in my Tableau projects very often, so it felt fresh to me, figuring out how to do that.
Okay, so we have some questions for you from the audience, and we're just going to take about one or two. So the first one is to Bo, and it's a more general question on how you balance building. I mean, if you do get to build, but as a data scientist, how do you get to balance building predictive machine learning models and dashboards on the other hand?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great question, and I'll just say that I think they're complementary. They're each going to have different places in the process, and so I think dashboards are honestly a great way to help kind of explore potential model features and things that you want to include in the predictive modeling. I know a lot of folks like to do that with I don't know, in Python, and just running kind of basic summary statistics and things like that. But for me, it gets that extra layer of power when you start, visualizing these features and seeing how they relate to one another, in kind of different ways. And I think it helps you understand in advance, a little bit more about whether a feature is something you even want to test and bring into the model, or if it's, something that's got some issues and you don't want to. And then on the back end, once those models are in production, I love using a tool like Tableau to help evaluate what is this model doing. How often is it hitting? How much are the features drifting? How much are the scores drifting? So and then how do we go back and iterate and improve the model itself, based on that? Because I think, bringing visual analytics to machine learning. I think, most teams do it in the sense of they're probably going to have, 1 or 2 line graphs that are going to, see is the model running and, what's going on. But I think a tool like Tableau allows you to kind of, explore model output a lot more richly, and then, use that to iterate and make better decisions. So I love the question. And I think it's all complementary, and Tableau is a wonderful complement to machine learning work.
Thank you both for responding to that. We have a question for Ryan. This is from Sebastian. He asked, he really loved your color, Ryan, the color you used on your Viz, and he's asking what color scheme you used, and did you plan to use the scheme beforehand, or you just came up with the color scheme during the process?
Yeah, so the only kind of decision I made before starting the build was on the background color. I think I saw, Bo, you mentioned this in your article too, about wanting to do something up with a dark background. I think we both felt that it would look better on the big screen in terms of having a dark background with the contrast. So that was the only decision I made kind of before starting. Then it kind of came to, what are all those highlight colors? What are the actual colors for the visuals and the charts? For those, I just kind of played around with some of the color palette generator tools, like Coolors was, I think that's how you pronounce it, was the one that I used till I found something I liked, and then just tweaked it with putting it into an accessibility checker, color accessibility checker, to see if there were any color blindness issues with the different color combinations I had on the Viz. So the only decision I made was to go dark, and then kind of just to my eye what I liked based on that dark background.
Cool. Thank you. I hope Sebastian was able to get the response to this question. I think this question goes to both of you, and it's from Toby, and is asking, is there anything you learned during the process of being in the Iron Viz competition or in the final itself that has somewhat changed your approach to Vizing?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, I mean, a ton. I've learned a ton during that process. I think, yeah, I've been developing in Tableau for a while, but at the same time, this is the most I've ever had a time pressure associated with a project. There's never really been a case where I had to, replicate a build quickly before. And on the one hand, like, yeah, speed vising is kind of like a party trick in a sense. You're probably never really going to have to do it again. But at the same time, and I think some of Lisa Trescott, who won Iron Viz a few years ago, she's had some kind of really high quality follow-up presentations for Tugs and Tableau Conference about kind of the lessons that she brought from the speed building. And I do think there's a lot there because, even if you're never going to have to replicate a dashboard in 20 minutes, the things that we do to make that possible, writing more efficient calculations, reusing, dashboard elements, moving things upstream into Tableau prep so that, you don't have to worry about it at the desktop layer. Like, I think, even though we don't need them for replicability in our day jobs, I think it is still a useful way to think about how can I do this more efficiently? How can I leverage the same things over and over again? How can I, make the dashboard perform a little better? Like, these are all things that, even if you're not trying to build in 20 minutes, they're super, super transferable. And I think too, ultimately just the ultimate lesson of like, how do you build something that you can show to people, and in a handful of minutes, they're going to walk away, not just engaged, but with some takeaways and some clear lessons. I think I'm going to bring that into all of my work moving forward. I've always tried, like, my personal philosophy has tended to be to build things that don't require interaction for people to get the point, or build things that don't require me to be there walking them through it for them to have a positive experience and get some new lessons out of it. So I think those are things that hopefully were present in my work before, definitely were present in the Iron Viz build, and I'm going to carry forward with me as well.
Great.
Yeah, I'd agree with everything Bo said there. The thing about Iron Viz with all these kind of constraints, the time limit constraints, presentation constraints, I think it really takes you back to like the core principles of data visualization and why we do it. Like nowadays with Tableau, there's all these advancements, you see people doing crazy things on Tableau Public, but you can't do all of those in Iron Viz. You really have to focus on, as Bo said, like in a matter of minutes, can someone understand the message that you're trying to communicate? So yeah, for me, it didn't change anything drastically in my process, just really made me focus on, the basic reasons of why we do data visualization, which is, to communicate information effectively.
Good. Thank you, Ryan. Talking about the Iron Viz stage, I know it's a very intense environment. Can both of you kind of describe how you felt or what it felt like in that moment? The nerves, the adrenaline. How did you manage, being sane, concentrated on you doing what you got to do, and still meeting up with, such deadlines, which is like 20 minutes? You can go first, Bo.
Yeah, so it's there's nothing really quite like it. I enjoy public speaking. It's the kind of thing I've done a bunch of, and I have fun doing it. But 7,000 people is you can never really be prepared for that. But I think yeah, I guess I just tried to kind of channel the anxiety I used to have when I'd be, performing something or playing sports or whatever. And, yeah, even kind of the last hour before we went on stage, it's just surreal because you hear people filing in, your prep is done, everything's set up, you've done your final walkthrough, your makeup's on, your mic's on, you're ready to go. But then you're just kind of there waiting, and you're waiting for that big moment as everything kind of fills in around you. And I think we all had different vibes at that time, and all kind of in our own heads in different ways. I was personally like listening to music and like bouncing around backstage. Catherine told me that it looked like I was, getting ready to go out for a fight. Because for me, I had all this nervous energy, and for me, I had to let it out physically. And thankfully, there's a huge backstage area where you could just kind of, jog around and get prepped that way. But yeah, it's wild. I'll say that the Iron Viz production team does a great job getting you ready. We've been rehearsing all week, really, since Sunday morning. We've been going through our stuff, and so. On the one hand, the team does an incredible job of preparing you, but on the other hand, I don't know that you're ever really ready for something like that. You just have a moment where you have to go, and then you make it happen.
Yeah, I think we were really well prepared. Like as Bo said, we were practicing for like 3 days before we had to do it. For me, it was like we had one kind of rehearsal on stage before we had to do it for the live event. And when you step out there, you kind of actually see the crowd and like everyone's cheering for you. It's just like a rush of adrenaline, but then you have to kind of zero back in and like build your dashboard in 20 minutes. So it's a really big rush, but the environment that you have to kind of step into is unlike any other, really. Like for me, you can hear the crowd, or you can hear the crowd like chatter while you're doing the build. It's everyone, like the judges are talking, the hosts are talking. It's pretty distracting. But like I said, we were really well prepared, doing the build all the times that we practiced, and then the presentation as well. But I think the one thing, of course, it can be very nerve-wracking being on the stage, but the crowd is like the most supportive crowd that I think you'll ever come across. Everyone kind of wants to see you succeed and do a good job, and that's something that the Iron Viz team told us very early on in our practice sessions. So that was definitely very comforting, and like you can't really step a wrong foot because the audience is always going to support you.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of support, I mean, we had to stay up till 12 a.m. from this side of the world to watch that. So we're so much invested and interested in seeing that. So amazing jobs you guys did. So my next question is about when it's very similar to when the some new products are being displayed even in Tableau Conference. When they're doing a live demo, there are things that happen compared to like what they expected, right? And some of these things also happen when you present in like live. So did anything unexpected happen during either on stage that forced you to pivot or improvise on the fly? And how did you adapt to those challenges? And I'm just going to add like a little question to that about while like you're on the stage and you're focusing on yourself and your own build, at the end, what were the things you would say you appreciated or you learned from the other contestants that you were able to say this was something that was like really good, and maybe in the future I could apply this in whatever perspective. So it's a bit of just two questions. Yeah, Ryan can go first.
Yeah, to the first part of your question, I had a really big slip up at the end of my presentation, so that was probably the biggest kind of thing that didn't go to plan. I was almost at the end and then just like tripped up on my words and like had a kind of moment there. But that's why I wanted to mention the community support. Like felt honestly really great to get kind of lifted up like that. It gave me a moment to kind of regroup and then finish out the presentation. But yeah, that's where I say I learned how like supportive the community really is, and it kind of, I don't know, I was on the flight home and I was kind of thinking about that moment and kind of how it kind of represented kind of my journey to get to the stage. Like I wouldn't be there without support from the entire community. So it was kind of representative of that. And then your second part of the question, one thing I think Bo did really well was his use of animations. That's always something that I've tried to play around with, but I could never kind of get get technically how to do it as well as Bo did it, paired up with the presentation as well. And then also I think, in all of Bo's work is he does a really good job of kind of the storytelling aspect as well. So kind of how he laid out his story using story points as well. That's something that was pretty unique. So the storytelling, then pairing that with the animations, I think was something I really enjoyed about Bo's work. Catherine as well, I think hers was very a technical build as well, especially with her the cockpit chart view that she had, and also her use of maps in the visualization as well. She told a really creative and unique story, and I think all three of us, the variety that we showed on stage is also something I really appreciate about Iron Viz. Like, one data set, you can have multiple different takes on it that all have a clear message and a clear story. So I like, all in all, I think it was a great kind of representation of what the Iron Viz competition really is about. And I think we all did had a good performance there.
So I think for me, the unexpected things during the build, I think the first one for me was before the build. So when we first walk out on stage, we're greeted by the hosts, and we each kind of have our little quip that we're ready to say. And we've rehearsed this a million times. But one thing I will say about being on stage, and maybe I just have bad ears, I don't know if it was the same for you, Ryan, but like, I feel like during the competition, like, everything the hosts are saying, and even to some extent the judges are saying, it was so muddy and hard to understand. And so, like, if you watch the competition back, you come out and, Andy asks me if I'm ready, and I swear I did not understand that he had just said that. And then, like, I realized he's looking at me, and I'm like, oh, this is the part where I say my quip. But like, I was out there and I heard Andy talk, and I heard his voice, but I just did not pick up the words. And I don't know if that was nerves or audio or like some combination of all of it, but that was my like total freeze up, like I have no idea what's going on moment. I think the other one for me, this is really specific, and I don't think it made it onto the video screen for whatever reason, so maybe it was an issue with my laptop, but I also think if you watch the video back, you can see like a solid minute where I am like visibly irritated and like talking to Clara, my wonderful supervisor, about what's going on. There was just a gray box on the right side of my screen, just an empty gray box. I have no idea how it got there, no idea what was going on, but like, my build was going fine. I was like perfectly on time. But there's just this gray box here. And I'm like, I have to get this to go away by the time I present. And thankfully, I don't know, I just like went in and out of a couple different modes and it disappeared. But that had never happened in any of my dozens of practice builds. But I was like, of course, live on stage, I'm just getting a gray box. So I'm thankful that it went away by the time I presented, because otherwise that would have been pretty awkward. And then, in terms of what I learned from the other two, I mean, I think everything, Ryan said was on point. When I think about Ryan's project, I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to look at. The colors are great. Everything just, and I think too, like, one of the things I really love about Ryan's project is that it is, and you mentioned this earlier, but like, it's an exploratory tool ultimately. You told an effective story out of it in your 3 minutes as an illustration of how to use the tool, but like, as a way to just kind of explore and learn different things, like, it works. And I think it didn't, it's hard for that to come across in the 3 minutes, but when you really spend time with the project and you see like, oh yeah, like, there are so many stories I can draw out of this, and they all work, and they're all beautiful, and they all flow like appropriately. So I think it was a really great example of the kind of dashboard where like, the more time you spend with it, the more you're like, this is really, really, really cool. I think a lot of similarities to Chris Westlake's winning entry last year. Very different, very different aesthetically and different flows and all of that, but just both tools where like, yeah, the more time you spend with it, you're like, yeah, there's really so much going on here. And I think that's really cool. I think for Catherine, obviously the designs were fantastic and creative, and, she did some really innovative stuff in what she put together. And I think when I think about Catherine too, like when you find out you're a finalist, you don't know until everybody else does who the other finalists are. And I think, when I saw Ryan's name pop up on screen, I was like, oh yeah, I know Ryan. Like, he's one of the best. This is absolutely like, yep, absolutely. And Catherine turns out was also one of the best, but we all didn't know that yet because, she hasn't been, creating publicly or like doing some of the things that Ryan and I have kind of been involved in over the past few years. So, Catherine was fantastic to work with, did an incredible job on her project. And I think Catherine is also just an awesome reminder that like, there's a lot of us out there who are building very publicly and kind of, people know who you are and, know your work. But it makes you think too about how many Catherines are out there as well, who are just incredible and can really, push the field forward, but haven't been, discovered by the community yet.
Interesting. Thank you for that response, Bo. We will go into the Q&A a little bit, then come back to the main questions we have for the day. We have a very interesting question from Ojosui. I'm going to skip a few lines of question and ask this because it's very funny. So it goes like this. He said, does your boss expect you to deliver a finished product in 20 minutes? Since you build dashboards in Iron Viz for 20 minutes, I guess you can deliver a dashboard in-house for 20 minutes.
I will say that they joke about it. They absolutely joke about it. Yes, but thankfully, I think they seem to understand that. Well, and I know it's the case for many of us that like, yes, when you have a well vetted, published, cleaned data set available to build with, yeah, you can build pretty fast. But how often are we actually that lucky during our day jobs? Probably not all that often. So. Yeah.
Well, one thing I'll add to that is the build was 20 minutes, but we did a lot of work in prep beforehand. So, like I think Bo, you brought in all those data densification and all that to create some of your charts. So there's a lot of work that didn't actually, a lot of data work that we didn't show on the stage. We did weeks before. So.
Yeah. And Maureen, you could take the next question.
Oh yeah, so we have
the Q&A.
A question from Benita. Oh, we have from Victory first, is Zenwan. And his question is, how do you identify a good dashboard? Like if you were a judge on the Iron Viz, what would you see and say, oh, it's really a good dashboard?
Bo, you got to think about this now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Be on the hook next year. Yeah, I mean, I think there's I think kind of my first generic part of the answer is that there are infinite types and styles of good dashboards. I think like checklists can be helpful, but ultimately, I think good work when you see it. But I think for me, just a couple things that kind of come to mind right away. It's aesthetically pleasing. It accomplishes what it's setting out to do. If it's trying to tell you a story, it gets you to that story with kind of minimal confusion, minimal mental load. If it's trying to be an exploratory tool, to help you find your own stories, there's an intuitive way to do that. If it's trying to convince you of something, they've chosen chart types and design elements that are going to kind of connect to the broader point. But yeah, I think, for me, I don't mind ornamentation. Like despite the fact that my journey started being trained by Edward Tufte, I'm not quite that much of a minimalist. And but at the same time, if there's ornamentation, I want it to serve a purpose. Like, Ryan had ornamentation in his dashboard that set the theme and kind of got you to imagine what you were looking at. And so there was stuff there that wasn't from the data, but it served a broader purpose and it was really useful. Versus, some of the types of ornamentation you might see on a dashboard where you're like, there's absolutely no purpose for this. These lines don't need to be here. This doesn't, it's not really adding anything. But, you know, I think another point to me too is just like, and, you know, I mean, the 3 Iron Viz judging criteria are design, analysis, and storytelling. And I think the analysis piece is really, really key too. You know, I want to feel like the story or message or pathway that's being presented is an accurate representation of what's in that data as well. And so I think sometimes, you know, occasionally you'll see absolutely gorgeous designs and like innovative presentations of data that aren't right. They're not accurate, or it's not, you know, not really a convincing message, you know, based on what's there. So I think I kind of rambled a little bit, but those are by Iron Viz next year. I will have a more concise answer to what makes a good dashboard. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much else to add to that. I mean, I think if I was an Iron Viz judge, I would really focus just like, of course, storytelling, design, and analysis are the 3 categories, but I think it all has to come, the design and the analysis have to support the story that you're telling. So does the story come through clearly in the visualization? And you know, if I just use it on Tableau Public and Tableau Desktop, is it intuitive to use? Do I get the insights that support the main story? That's how I would assess it.
Yeah. Before Maureen asks the question, let me just ask this one from the Q&A. So it's from Kenny, and I just wanted to follow up with the design and storytelling, like you said, because our question is just about that. And the question is, what ensured your designs and storytelling approach resonates with the diverse audience, basically? Sorry. Ryan would just answer that. So Maureen can go.
Yeah, I'm trying to fully understand the question. I'm going to assume by diverse audience, you mean like...
Yeah, because I mean, yeah. So I guess she's talking about, because, you know, in the audience, we have like different level of expertise, like beginners, experts, you know, different people, different industries, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the topic itself was very like anyone can relate to it, right? Because everyone flew into San Diego. Like, people are all familiar with air travel. So just building off of that, I kind of put the story and design around that specific theme. So, you know, by focusing on the theme of bird flight, bird travel, I think that's very relatable story for people to understand. And just the idea of, you know, I'm a bird, I want to arrive at my destination safely and avoid getting hit by planes. Like, I think that's a very like simple thing for the common person to get. So what I was trying to do in the viz, like, I think that would come clearly. So it was more around how I structured the story in that specific way, with the simple steps to ultimately arrive at getting to a destination safely. That's how I kind of thought about having it be understandable by the entire audience.
Yeah, I think, you know, to add on to that, I agree with everything Ryan said. And, you know, I think all 3 of us did a really nice job of telling big stories too. You know, there's a lot of really niche stories in that data set. And actually, I think, you know, there's the ability to make kind of potentially even more compelling stuff focused around, you know, a single species or a single airport, or just, you know, really niche things. But ultimately, I think for a competition like Iron Viz, yeah, you want to tell a story that everybody can see themselves in. And I think we all did that in very different ways, but I think we all did that. And I think also, you know, there's the potential for this data set. You know, it's not a gigantic data set, but there is a lot there. There are a lot of different elements that you could choose to focus in on if you wanted to. And I think all 3 of us did a really nice job of avoiding kind of jargon and technical terms and things that are like very much there in the data, and you could focus on them if you wanted to. But I think we all chose different aspects, but aspects that were kind of, you know, universally fairly straightforward, and things that, you know, you're not going to place a lot of mental load on people to even understand what you're talking about. And so, yeah, I think telling big stories and telling them in a way that that is just going to be easy for people to understand with no background knowledge. I'm not sure that any of us were actually really coached into that, but I think we all kind of came there pretty naturally.
Great. Thank you for that, Bo and Ryan. We have give or take 12 more minutes to wrap this up. We will be asking one more question from the Q&A before we move over to the final question. So we have a question from Ebenezer Sam, and he says, what's one analytics skill you think every analyst should master, no matter what tools they use? Bo, you can go first.
Oh gosh, I can't pick just one. I'll pick one. I mean, I think, I really just think design is a tool agnostic skill that every analyst is going to really benefit from having. I'm not going to say the obvious stuff like learn SQL or understand some basic statistics, but I think design is one of the ways that kind of a junior analyst can really start to set themselves apart. I think whatever the tool is, Tableau, Power BI, Splunk, anything, like there are little things that you can do. I think we all know this. You can sometimes it doesn't take even all that much time to elevate something from confusing and blurry and kind of all over the place to just kind of a nice, clean, informative design. And I think I think oftentimes in our careers this gets shorthanded as pretty. They make pretty dashboards, but like there's so much more to it than that. And I think yeah, intentional design and focusing on the aesthetics of the information you're presenting, I think that's applicable across any tool, and I think it really helps people reach that next level.
Yeah, design was going to be mine, and I think design's a key ingredient. You need good design in order to communicate information well. But I'll go like a step kind of further than that. I'm going to say mine would be kind of empathy. You need to be able to understand what your user wants and what they actually want to see, understand what their struggles are, pain points, all that, to be able to build something in the end that ultimately addresses all of those. So yeah, design would be like overarching, but specifically within that, I'd say being able to understand your user.
Sorry, I got stuck trying to unmute myself. Absolutely. I agree. Thank you. I'm also a huge fan of design myself. So I think we have about 2 more questions. We hope you're not tired. We've asked so many questions. We just have 2 more to go, don't worry. So this is relating back to the community and from both of you. I think Bo rightly said earlier, there are so many, Catherines out there that we need to, discover, give a chance, give an opportunity to really show what they have, right? And I mean, beyond the competition, you guys are very active in the community, ambassadors, and everything that comes with it. How do you leverage Tableau Public and the community itself to, one, continue learning, and then to share, and then to also inspire others, given you've had the opportunity to be in a position where others can take inspiration? So how do you, get to leverage this opportunity, Tableau Public and the community? Yeah,
Sure.
Ryan,
Yeah, I mean, I think Tableau Public is so important, especially for my kind of development in this career. I think first part of your question is more related to learning. Like, there's so many people out there who are creating great content on Tableau Public, but also taking it a step further and teaching others too. So paying attention to all of those influential people in the community. Like even just a short example, like Bo had done previous work. I can't get the topic in my mind, but Bo had a viz a few years ago that I took inspiration from, and ended up getting a viz of the day for it. So like just like I've been learning from Bo for years too. So it's for me, it's taking that inspiration and learning, and then I try to kind of pay it forward by trying to lift others up in the community as well. So there's a few people who I kind of mentor in the data visualization space, but also just putting my work out there publicly. And this is always just a kind of weird place for me, because I feel like I'm still kind of, I'm not the best Tableau developer out there by any means. But when people come up to me and, tell me that I've inspired them, or they like my work, it's kind of like, wow, really? Like, what am I actually doing? So it's great to know that, I try to, like, I do kind of inspire people. It's even weird for me to say that, but I just want to, continue putting my work out there, allowing people to kind of use it and take it for what they will. And that's kind of how I approach it. I'm still kind of, even all this kind of fame within the Tableau community after Iron Viz is a bit weird. I don't know how you feel about it, Bo, but yeah, my plan is to just continue creating and trying to inspire people that way.
Thank you, Ryan. Talking about inspiration, we have a lot of audience who inspire us to be like an amazing data visualization analyst. If someone is dreaming of course, competing in the Iron Viz, or simply wants to be a world-class data visualizer, what will be the most single important piece of advice you get to give them? Oh, you can go first.
Yeah, it's a cliche answer, and but I'm gonna say practice. I'm just gonna say keep on practicing. I know. Yeah, Ryan, your portfolio is fantastic, and obviously I've been following your work for years too, and kind of seeing the growth that comes from practice. And I think that's evident when you look at your work, when you look at my work. There are, I'm not going to say there's no shortcuts. I'm sure there's some shortcuts, but ultimately, you got to spend the time doing it. But do it in a way that you love and that you have fun with. And for me, I know a lot of folks really love projects like a Workout Wednesday or a Makeover Monday. I think they're cool. They're really interesting, and they mean a lot to a lot of people. I've tended to participate less in those, and I've tended to kind of bring my hobbies into practicing to the extent that I can. And so, I think for me, it's practice, and it's practice in a way that you love. I started doing this using data sets about sports and music and movies and like just the things that I like to do in my free time. And I think that's borne out in my Tableau Public profile as well. And I think one of the things that I hope people take from my work is seeing themselves in DataViz, or seeing a hook in DataViz that maybe you're not going to get in kind of day-to-day business analytics stuff. But like, can you do something cool with pop culture data? Can you do something cool with history or politics or whatever that thing is that you're into? So yeah, practice, but practice in a way that is enjoyable to you. And because I can tell you, as many hours as I've spent building Tableau dashboards, especially over the past 5 years, I still love it. And I still, a lot of my Tableau Public projects that you see, they originated because I was just thinking about something and I was curious about it. And I thought, hey, I bet I can learn that. And then, hey, this is interesting. I bet I can tell others about it. And so, yeah, so that's where my practice has come from. But you'll see if you go through my profile, you'll learn a lot about me and the things that I'm into, because that's what's there.
Great. Thank you, Bo, and thank you, Ryan. So we have one more final question from me and one question from the Q&A. The question is a little bit off context with the Iron Viz. I know AI is on everybody's lips right now. AI this, AI that. I'm using AI this, I'm using AI that. So as half of our audience are people, trying to dive into the data visualization world, what will be the advice you will give them to leverage this advent of AI in order to position themselves well in the industry? Maybe Ryan, you can go first.
Oh man, I think AI can help, especially in the kind of the visual analytics process. AI can kind of help with that pre-work that you do before you get into Tableau. Like I think even like for me, I use ChatGPT to kind of get an idea of what birds would do with data, would do with the data set. So I think from like a story standpoint, maybe even design a bit, you can like leverage Gen AI to kind of help you get to the point of building a dashboard, and it can really save a lot of time and make things efficient for you. Yeah, that's kind of in my process where I've inserted Gen AI, and it definitely makes things more efficient for the entire end-to-end process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as I think about AI, I guess more taking the perspective of, you know, how do we continue to stand out in a world of increasing automation? And, you know, I think for me, you know, my advice would be to learn about the things that AI is really good at, but also learn about the things that AI is really bad at and make yourself really good at those things. Like, I think I've been kind of bearish on AI compared to a lot of people in this field, but I think if the AI revolution does come to analytics, you know, more fully than it has already, you know, I think the danger for people is going to be, you know, if you have formed a career for yourself as an analyst who is doing kind of a lot of routine automated reporting, you know, here's a bar chart of the top 10 things, here are how many things we counted last week. You know, if AI works the way that they're telling us it's going to, that stuff really may start getting automated and sooner than we think. So then how do we continue to add value and be yeah, really impactful even in that space? And so for me, you know, I'll go back to the design piece. I'll say that I don't think AI makes very good graphs right now, or, you know, that I think and I think the ability to work with data sets and draw out insight is going to be something that also I have seen AI do very well at the kind of, yeah, tell me the average sales by state last week. Okay, cool. But we can all deliver a lot more than that, right? We can look at how those things are changing over time and bring context in and understand kind of deeply some of these patterns that I'm really skeptical AI is ever going to be all that good at picking up. I think what goes along with it as well is, you know, as we think about the analytics space, you know, we all know it's very, very hard to build a great dashboard without at least a decent data source backing it up. And I think that's going to be the same for AI as well. You know, AI turned on bad data sources is going to give you bad results. No one's going to trust it, and no one's going to be happy with what happened. So, you know, I would say kind of along with that, depending on where you want to take your career, you know, if you're in an analyst role, but SQL hasn't really been part of what you've learned yet, I would say maybe learn that a little bit. And, you know, because I think that's going to be harder to the creation of like good, clean, well-curated data sets, I think is going to be one of the things that AI is later to do successfully as well. So I would say work on the insight generation and the design pieces, work on figuring out how to get good data models together so that when the kind of baseline repetitive reporting does get automated, you can excel around that.
I love that. Automation. Thank you for the responses. One last question would be from Lawal. He said, in your work, do you immediately know what kind of dashboards to build or stories to tell by looking at the data set? Or is there a list of questions that you ask? Bo?
Oh gosh, I definitely don't know right away. Definitely not. No. Well, I think when I'm thinking about work, I guess I probably am usually attacking a data set with a question in mind, just because I work in an environment with, you know, seemingly infinite data available. So the kind of, you know, exploratory analysis can be a little tougher to do. For personal projects, no, I think the questions evolve, right? We start dragging, we start dropping, we start finding patterns, and then they, you know, lead to more questions. And so I think, you know, just going into this development work as a curious person, I think is just kind of the thing that you're always going to want to do, and be open to the questions that are going to evolve as you start exploring.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm probably always coming into it with some kind of hypothesis or question when attacking the data set. Like the reason I mentioned empathy before is like you got to understand who you're building for, like who your target user audience in mind is, and they will have a, you know, a need or a question. So like sometimes it's, it might be your own personal question, or if you're building for an audience or users, it can be what they might want to understand from the data set. So yeah, that kind of guides the ultimate dashboard that you build.
Amazing. Thank you. I mean, if we were to really say thank you, it probably would have been enough because you've answered so many questions, and we've also, I think the interaction has been really great today because our Q&A section is absolutely filled up with so many questions for you guys, and then we really appreciate you guys for taking the full time to answer every question that we had. And this is a thank you as well, once again, for being a part of us and for joining us to talk about your process, to talk about visualization, talk about the community. And thank you so much for also doing this to give back to the community. And we really, really do appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Bo.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes. Yeah. So to just close things up, Kenny, you could share your screen. We just try to close things up. Okay. So just towards the last slide. Okay, so yeah, once again, thank you everyone for attending. Definitely see you in June for our next, it's not physical, should have removed that part, for our next virtual event of 2025. Be a part of the community by following Lagos TUG on X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as subscribing to the YouTube channel. So in case you came in late or you definitely want to watch this again, you can access all our previously made sessions as well there. And just be sure to subscribe to Lagos TUG on YouTube. Follow and join the channel by scanning the QR code if you have a chance to. And be a part of us. Join us to enhance your Tableau skills, collaborate with fellow data enthusiasts, and be a part of a vibrant, dynamic group. And to just cap things up, we have a newsletter by us, by Lagos TUG. And we have Joy that works on the newsletter. So if she just wants to just talk about that quickly. Yeah, Joy.
So much for staying to this time. And thank you to Ryan and Bo. This was so much fun and I learned so much from both of you. And I hope our audience also did the same. So our newsletter is really amazing and we call it the Lagos Talk Viz letter. So basically what we do there is every month we highlight someone that's doing amazing in the community. We highlight a Viz that's been inspiring us, and we also get to answer your questions. So I'll be leaving the link in the chat for you to register or sign up to our newsletter, and also for you to ask questions if you have any, and a professional would respond to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joy. Kenny, you can stop sharing so I could just show what that looks like for our first edition. In case you're just hearing this for the first time, please be sure to, let me just see if I could set up very quickly. Okay, so this is just how our newsletter looks like. We have community. We talk about we highlight the Viz from the Lagos community or the Tableau community in Nigeria. We have a section where you can ask a data pro a question, and then we get to answer, and then you can click on the link to send in a question of a choice, and then we put our upcoming events here so you can stay up to date with what we have coming next. And that concludes the user group meeting for today. Once again, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for being a part to the audience. Thank you for being so interactive. The chat is full. The TUG, the Q&A is full. So, and also be sure to follow Bo and Ryan on LinkedIn and X, and also keep an eye out for other TUG sessions that we'll be having. I think Ojosi has a link in the comment section for upcoming sessions that they will be hosting in case you missed this one or you want to still hear from them. Once again, thank you everyone. All stay in touch. Feel free to connect with Lagos TUG and all the speakers and also the hosts, and hope to see everyone at the top. Bye guys.
Yeah, bye guys. Bye Ryan. Bye Bo.